Jane Vandermeer, welcome back to the Bend Like Bamboo podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Amanda. I always love spending time with you.
Oh,
It's a
me
delight to
too.
be here together. We
Oh,
always
I
have
feel
rich,
the
amazing
same.
conversations, don't we?
Yes, yes, we're so aligned in so many ways. And, I was just remembering how we met, which I
How
can't believe. So I'm going to be 45 next week. What?
are you?
What?
Don't look at.
I don't feel it. But I'm,
No, no.
I'm
I
cool with
get
it. Like I made it. I made it to 45 but I'm
that.
still 44 and I'll just enjoy that for a bit longer. Um,
Exactly.
but 24, around the age of 24, I remember we met in the fashion industry because I was working in the fashion industry then.
Yeah, you were, and we met when you were working for a beautiful design team duo, and yeah, I can't believe it was 20 years ago, to be
I
honest.
know, on Greville Street back in the day, with the Jeton boys. And yes, and because you're a luxury style and image strategist, and you've been in the industry for over 30 years now.
I know. Yeah, I've been in a long time. My first business was when I was about 16, actually. So yeah, I've been in one form or another a long, long time.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so interesting. Like, let's get a snapshot of your entrepreneurial journey. So your first business at 16.
Yeah, I started making ball gowns when we were all going to school balls back then in about year 10, about age 16. And I've always been able to sew. I I'm really that's a great love, but I can look at something and then replicate it or use that as inspiration and then create from there. And so friends would say, "Oh, I want what you've got," or whatever. And so business began back
Yeah,
then and while I was still at school.
that's
And so
amazing.
throughout my whole career, I've built and created and sold a couple of businesses throughout that time. Yeah.
Yes, which is
Mm.
so impressive. I've had you on the podcast before, probably a couple of
Yeah.
years ago, and we chatted
Yeah.
about your journey, and you've got Finesse Your Style. And how long have you had your styling business for?
So it's been under different, I suppose, iterations as I've grown
Yeah.
and evolved, on and off for about 30 years, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, but as Finesse Your Style, I can't remember really, probably about 6 or 7 years in this version that it is now. Yeah, yeah.
And I love how you're all about helping women to discover their inner resilience, authenticity, helping them to feel more confident and how that can be expressed in their external style, but in that alignment of what's going on the inside. I really love that.
Absolutely. I realized when I was in my all of my 20s, I had a couture label and I loved that. And I watched, I love digging beneath the surface. And I watched these extraordinary, beautiful professional women come in who were, very educated in amazing roles. And yet their self-talk about their bodies, like the first thing that came out of their mouths was apologizing for their bodies, like how they see themselves and how I see their
Mm.
body often is very different. We can be very hard on ourselves, myself included. I'm not excluded from that. But I watched that in a way, it didn't matter what role a lot of women were in, that self-talk, that insecurity, that lack of self-confidence was still there. And I realized long ago that when I could do something about it and I could dig deeper and give women tools to learn, unwind that self-talk, unwind that little gem of belief that some girl said to you when you were a teenager, or some boy you were keen on, or your family member, and it fueled or fed that belief.
Yes.
And it's probably not true, but that bit of insecurity, and it feeds that. So
Yes.
So I'm going to help women unwind that and then give them new tools. And so it is digging deeper, digging, and what that does is it gives women lifelong tools and skills that they take with them and fly in life. It's more than
Absolutely.
just the external, it's marrying the internal and the external.
Well, I can see how feeling confident externally and internally how that would impact your brand and business. But when that happens and it's translated into other areas of their lives, what does that look like?
Yeah. So, when we women feel better about themselves, we walk differently, we own our
Mhm.
space differently, it also then there's this lovely, lovely ripple effect I watch where it does affect our relationships with our special people, our family, our friends, our partners, our communities. Most women are fairly community minded. And so there's this beautiful impact, which we don't always put a value on. But when we feel better about ourselves and feel lovely and feel more confident and feel beautiful, like what an impact that is.
Yeah, even just on its own. And,
Absolutely.
so much of my work as a kinesiologist is all about, in a similar way, identifying any limiting beliefs
Yeah.
that are,
Absolutely.
stopping clients from achieving their goals professionally or personally, and
Yeah.
then helping them with flexibility to reimagine that story that they're telling themselves
Yeah.
and
It's
then
so
how
big.
to, yeah, it's
So
huge,
big.
but it impacts our nervous system by
Yes.
reducing stress. And then
Yes.
when we reduce our stress levels, we're not only able to show up better, but we're more ready and adaptable to change, which means we'll grow. We'll push
Yeah.
ourselves out of our comfort zone and become our potential.
Absolutely. And when I think about that from an aesthetic point of view, I work with a lot of women in business, entrepreneurs, and now we are, or probably we always have been, we're a walking advertisement of our businesses. So if our body language, if our personal presentation is reflective of what business is like right now, and
Mm,
especially if it's a hard time,
mm,
as opposed to dressing like say you want to take your income of your business to the next, I don't know, that $100,000 bracket,
yeah,
half a million, whatever the increase is for you.
yeah.
Let's dress like that level, not
Well,
like
that's also
not
creating the vibration and the energy and
is
holding a
it is.
container of space of what you want to move into, attracting it, stepping
That,
into the new radio station energy
that's
of it, isn't it?
it is entirely that. It is that in a nutshell. And I often talk about when the complete polish is there, and that's a different definition for every lady. But before you've even opened your mouth, when you are, whether you're on stage, whether you're in a boardroom negotiating something, whatever that situation,
Mm,
before you have opened your mouth, it is your vibration. It
mm,
is that real grounded
mm.
and that sense of power that comes when all of those elements come together.
I totally agree. I mean,
Mm.
before I became a kinesiologist, I was very much in the fashion industry for a long time. First with, or actually, we were just chatting about even
Yeah,
earlier days when I was young. I used to work at Sports Girl and
yeah,
General Pants, and
yeah.
worked in retail, which I think is really important to understand what it's
Very
like
good.
in sales on the
Very
floor,
good. Yeah,
right?
because you've got to talk to people that you wouldn't normally
Yeah. Yeah. And understand
do.
what that market's like and what it's like to,
That's right.
yeah, be of service and in sales. And then that moved into a role with Sabatini Knitwear, where I
Oh, yeah.
started as an office manager and worked behind the scenes with the head office and designers to bring the brand out into wholesale
Yeah.
and into accounts all over Australia and just helping the team to, like travel and get all the new ranges out there. And that was such a fun job. I really enjoyed that. And then that led to Jeton Couture and becoming a personal assistant for them. But for me, fashion has always been a way that I've been able to express myself
Yes.
and to discover more confidence within myself when I haven't quite found it yet. And I can find it in just
Absolutely.
tweaking my outfit, putting that suit jacket on, especially if I've got a meeting where I feel like I need to step into my power. And luckily now, as you know, as we get older, we can find that more authentically within ourselves without needing that. But I think there's nothing wrong at all with having a balance of that in how we
Absolutely.
feel externally versus
Absolutely.
how we, because that's the next question I wanted to ask you is when did you first recognize the connection between personal style and inner resilience?
I think back somewhere in my 20s, back then, with those examples, with
Yeah.
even I probably couldn't have put the language around it back then, but I knew there was something to it with like traditional styling really is about the external and let me take you shopping. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. But I knew part of my superpower was bringing the two together for women. And, then you throw in my personal life experience and experiences along the way. And the best way we lead is by experience, not by theory. And so, losing one's confidence due to lots of reasons, whether it's relationships, working situations, tough times,
Yeah.
whatever.
Changes. Yeah.
Um, that's how we learn and that's how we grow and that's how we keep evolving, we keep propelling, well, we
Yeah.
choose to keep propelling and moving forward.
Yeah. Because, it's also how I use it as homework with clients of mine to, if we're reimagining what can be possible for that person and discovering the barriers to success and blocks. And then as we're developing this new version of ourselves and stepping into our power, I say to them, well, what would you wear? How would you walk? How would you talk if I gave you a script for a movie and you're,
Yeah.
confident, playful Annie or, whatever their
Yes,
name is.
yes,
And
yes,
so utilizing our ability to dress ourselves in characters, I
yeah,
think can be really helpful in creating and developing that inner persona and personality and inner resilience of
yeah. And
discovering who we
I,
want to be.
I would add in with that sort of self-imposed limiting beliefs. How do you feel when you put on something that is, it's not necessarily about the labels, but it's how you feel. How do you feel when you put on something that's really, um, sort of worn and maybe got holes in it? Maybe it's your favorite something, and we've all got something like that that we're not willing to throw out.
Yes.
Versus something that's a little bit beyond your general buying patterns. So
Yes.
whether it's a really special dress that you've always wanted to acquire,
Yeah.
how do you walk? How do you feel? What's the vibration? What iteration of yourself is that? And for some ladies, that might be a Chanel jacket. It might be going right to the luxe part of the
Yeah.
market. And what does that do to your vibration when you embody that level that perhaps you never thought possible in your.
Yes. Yes. And it doesn't have to be about the labels. I totally agree. It can just be, designers they're well made and tailored outfits. And that makes you feel like the chosen fabric and how soft it is. It's more thought through than, if you
Yeah,
just went to off the rack,
that's it.
different kind of brands and
That's
and
it.
and how ethically sourced the fabrics are and
That's
and the energy of that comes
yeah,
through into the clothes as well, which is why I love flannel. And these things are really thought through because in everything I've done, those things really have mattered.
they
But I
do.
think
They
even
do.
on another type of healing that I've used with clothing is even for in my own personal experience where I've had to stop overworking and pushing myself and finding more a playful version of myself that feels enough in just what I'm doing. So then I'll wear more hippie style clothes
Yeah.
to embody that persona I know I can be and that I am. And it
Yeah.
reminds me to slow down.
Yeah. I think too, it's very easy when we're busy, which is, really most of us, most women particularly, are very stretched with what we fit in with life. It's very easy to be a little bit default with our outfits. We put that top and that bottom, we know they work, so we
Yeah.
sort of just rotate that. When at a certain point, like when I generally work with women for about 6 months, and at a certain point, when during that time, after I've taught you some foundational ideas that are quite different to, what you could Google or whatever,
Yeah.
I then tip it on its head, and let's challenge, like often women are in quite serious jobs, roles, whatever, right? And let's challenge that and tip it upside down and inject fun and personality and quirk. And maybe it's a bit of irreverence. Maybe underneath it, on the weekends, you're a bit of a rock chick. Maybe you're a bit of this, a bit of that. And how we do that and then bring that back into your work life. So you've got your elements of Amanda-isms that are still
Yeah.
your uniqueness. So you're not walking around looking like,
Someone else.
yeah, or a Punchy Road catalogue or something. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with Punchy Road. I don't mean that, but putting your own twist on things. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so important, I imagine, as a stylist, and obviously your point of difference.
Yeah.
You've traveled the world, Jane. You've built
Yes.
and sold businesses, as you've said, and
Yes.
what I really, really love about you and all of our chats is your awareness and understanding into the importance of connecting to our higher self in
Yes.
building and utilizing our intuition as well as our intellect when not only making decisions, but just living our everyday lives.
Yeah.
And so when we align our personal lives with inner guidance and our higher guidance, what
Yeah.
does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's such a great question. It's always been there throughout my life. Again, in my 20s, I probably didn't know the right language around it. Maybe that didn't matter, but
Mm.
now I'm probably, because I'm immensely private, really. Now I probably talk about it a lot more. That connection, that greater purpose, that um, intuition, it drives everything. Everything. It is it's an it's a state of being. It's an embodiment of every decision I do, every whether it's growing businesses, creating businesses, selling businesses, right down to smaller things. You'll hear me talk about the bubble of Jane.
Yep.
Um, you know, where to go, where to put my energy, where to pull back, where to, all of those areas, it is ingrained now. Those
Yes.
things, yeah.
And so when you were building a business or when you had to use your intuition to sell,
Yeah.
how did you go about? Were there any daily tools or tips that
Yeah,
of what you
great.
did to access your higher self to bring that down and then integrate that not only into your mind and body, but in how you showed up? Like, what's that process for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, truly, and I think it's a state of being, and I think it's a long-term thing. It took time. It felt like one step forward, three steps back constantly, because
Yes.
we're so used to being intellectual. But small business is about intellectual life and decisions, isn't it? And as is whether you're working for someone or whatever, it's not really intuitively based. And I believe it's both that's needed, yin and yang, and it's
Yeah.
balance. So every day is there are a few tools. I don't overbook myself the way but it used to be a badge of honor where you know be the
Yeah.
first person in the office, last to leave, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Always say yes, overbook myself, burnout, all that kind of
That
thing.
definitely disconnects you from your higher self because you become
We
burnt out, resentful, and
yeah,
there's no headspace for that
no space to even feel
think,
and think.
integrate.
No,
Yeah.
no. So that's being too much in the head, basically. So every day
Yes.
I I do a number of practices a number of times a day, but certainly start my day that way. And even if it's as simple as walking in nature, 9 times out of 10, I do that every day. And whether I feel like it or not, I push myself to do it because it's so easy, you know, our minds are busy and we're pushed and whatever. And we need to connect back and be grounded and then get back to the heart.
Well, it is a return to self, that reconnection, isn't it?
It
And
is.
just like a plane that flies and is just constantly course correcting to stay on that straight line, we
Absolutely.
are, constantly being triggered, jumping out of our bodies and,
Yeah,
stressed
yeah,
and
yeah,
dealing with everyday occurrences. And
yeah,
I think the art is how we can elevate and
yeah,
start our day from a more connected place, and
yeah,
then how we check in with ourselves to
yeah,
return to self and anchor in the body,
yeah.
which is that connection of your gut and intuition. And you're so right. When you book yourself out and you've just got meeting after meeting after
Right.
meeting,
Yeah.
like my day today,
Yeah.
as we discussed
Yes.
before,
Yeah. Yeah.
you get pushed into your head, and it's always
It's
over
very
analyzing. Yeah, and that can push you in a stress response without realizing.
absolutely. And it's very easy to end up in flight or fight, that stress response on a really long term.
Yeah.
We all, you know, most of us have been there at some point. So, you know, for days where I'm back to back to back to back, as much as possible, I would then try and allow, if I can't do it that day, I'll block out time in my diary the
Mm.
next day somehow to allow that time. And if I am under a lot of
Thanks for
pressure to
listening
make
to
a
this
decision
episode of the
there and
Ben Like
then,
Bamboo podcast.
and
I would
I'm
love you to rate it
I
and
need a
share it
few
with your
minutes to collect
community or
myself,
anyone that you
Yeah.
think
buy
might need to hear
myself
this episode.
time
If you would like to
and do
discover the
what's
power of
needed to get back in my
flexibility
body
and
and
how
out of my head to make
kinesiology
a
and the Ben
clear
Like Bamboo
decision.
program can help you, please
How
And
do
book
we
me
do
in for
that
a
when
free
we've got
discovery
one or two
call on my
kids
website,
apart?
sometimes
benlikebamboo.com
I
under
think it's
bookings,
practice.
or
I think
email
it is
Amanda
practice
at
and being
Yeah.
really kind to
benlikebamboo.com.
yourself as you
You can
get,
see me
you know,
one-on-one in
because
Melbourne or on
I can
Zoom
do it very
remotely.
quickly now, but I've been
My
doing it for a
book,
long
Ben
time.
Like
It
Bamboo,
doesn't,
is
it's
now
a bit like
available
being
on my
told, oh, do
website
your
and
meditation.
bookstores
When you
online.
first start
And I'm also
meditating,
taking new
you'd really
clients
rather
into
pull
the
your teeth out
2024
It's
individually.
Ben
another
Like
chore,
Bamboo
another thing to
6-month
do
And
on your
program
already busy
of
day.
monthly
Yeah.
sessions
It is
taking you
so
through
hard,
all the
but you
lessons,
do get better.
tools,
And
and
meditation
strategies that I
comes in
detail
many
in the book,
forms. It might
helping you to
be,
de-stress and reset and to
I don't know,
reimagine what can
do
be
some
possible
gardening,
in your
make a
mind, body,
cake
and life.
as
Yep.
opposed to
Thank
like
you
cooking
so much
dinner.
for
You know,
supporting the
it
podcast,
comes
and
in
I will
many
see you at
forms.
the next
Yeah.
session.
Sometimes if um it might be I would go and stand out in my garden or find some nature somewhere and go and stand there for 10 minutes in between a meeting and do my best deep breathing. Imagine that my breath is going into my feet to ground myself, and I would give it my best shot. And
Yeah.
it doesn't always work, but it does slow that adrenaline, that panic, that
Yeah. That fight or flight stress response. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And
Mm.
then you and I think be kind to yourself because it's like a muscle. It's practice. It's
Yeah,
practice.
it needs to be a part of like a ritual that you embody throughout the day where, just like you would brush your teeth or, you have to
That's it.
eat,
That's it.
it's like, well, then, I need to do this ritual.
Mm,
Another thing that can help is, allocating a
absolutely.
miracle bracelet that you're wearing.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. And that can be a prop that reminds you, oh, yes,
Yep.
checking in, return back to self. Am I feeling relaxed? Am I returning back into my body? Am I feeling anchored and centered? And
Yep.
is my heart open? Am I being kind to myself? And
Yep.
how can I see this situation in this, at this part of the day in a relaxed state with an open heart? They're the two things I always ask myself.
Yeah. And you think of like what you've just described. I think back to when I've, might have had to make a presentation or something. If you go into that meeting in true flight or fight, you're not grounded, you're not connected, you maybe can't remember everything you're supposed to say. You're a bit heightened, and the adrenaline's going a bit over the top. Whereas if you can even just take 10 minutes to connect and slow everything down
and breathe.
And it's funny because when I'm interviewed, which I am quite a bit, one of the first things people say to me is your calm manner, the calm way you speak. And I think, oh, that's such a nice compliment, because I work very hard at that. And another thing that's coming in is that in that book Untamed, if you've read with
Gilbert.
It's her friend.
Elizabeth Gilbert, is it?
It's Elizabeth Gilbert's friend. It's Abby.
Oh.
It's Abby's wife.
Oh, okay. And it's called Untamed. Yes.
I will think of
good
it.
things about that book.
She talks about, in this exact instance, when she's presenting, in a meeting or whatever, she will go and take herself and sit in a cupboard cross-legged if she can't find anywhere else to ground herself and go back. And I thought, it's exactly the same thing. You've got to do what you've got to do.
Yeah.
And she'll excuse herself from a very heated situation, sit in a cupboard cross-legged, ground herself and go back.
Yeah, and everything is a mirror image of what we're actually believing, not only our nervous system, but how we structure our day. So if I believe that, I don't have enough time in my day, my diary will look like that, because everything will become a mirror image of what we're believing. And so by untangling those beliefs and being more aware of what they are, sometimes we need to create more space in our diaries before we will start to transform those inner beliefs, or sometimes the other way around. And so it's really a work in progress of both.
I think too, for a lot of women, and certainly for me, it's been a big life lesson, is boundaries. Like with our diaries, for instance, where to say no. For a lot of us, it's not that natural to say no. For some reason, we're especially if you're a bit heart-based or empathetic or all those things, saying no and making decisions to, that would be great, but I really don't have time at the moment. So
just really knowing your priorities.
Yeah.
And that's all about building that confidence, isn't it? And that inner resilience. Can you think of an example of when you followed your higher guidance and higher self and where that led to an unexpected positive outcome for you?
Oh, there's so many. There's a million things.
One that really threw you, that went, wow.
Yeah. So a few years ago, or maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I said to one of my closest girlfriends, I would love to meet women, take women styling in Paris. And she said, oh, okay. I said, that's what I'd like. And then at the start of last year, I remember thinking, I wonder if this year I could do that. And then different things fell. It's almost like the thought came in, and I then watched things fall into place. I then had to take action, of course, because it's yin and yang. It's attract and then bravely take action. And last September, that's what I did. And I met women from all over the world. I do work globally, and on the styling retreat in Paris.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And my girlfriend reminded me, and she said, do you remember it was only like 2 or 3 years ago you told me this is what you wanted. And I went, oh, wow. That wasn't long for such a big, that's a big thing.
Big goal. Yeah. And so there was maybe something that your guidance telling you,
totally
yes, this is something to act on.
Yeah. And I think that intuition it's the blend of masculine, feminine, yin, yang. Sometimes it's about okay, listening, and we don't need to act. And then
Yeah.
we usually it comes, I call it intuitive walking, where I'm out walking in nature, where I will feel like today's the day, ring that person, communicate with that person, act. Today is the act day. And I never question it, and I act.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, I'd go, you sure? Is it right? I need something clearer. Whereas now I'm just like, okay, yep, good. And I act, and then things happen.
Yeah, because it's not only listening to your higher self of when to go, it's also when to listen to your higher self to pull back and just watch and observe and listen and gather more information.
Absolutely. And we're
Yeah.
not meant to, you think of seasons in life, seasons in one's body. We're not meant to be go, go, go on the front foot every single day. We're not meant to. But
No.
we need to act when we feel guided. And that the only way you know that is get out of your head, get out of the way.
So if someone's feeling like they've got a jam-packed schedule and they've got all these responsibilities
Thanks for
and they've lost
listening
that
to this
connection to their higher
episode of
self
the
and the
Ben
ability
Like
to have
Bamboo
time and space,
podcast.
what's
I would
your
love you to rate
what are
it
your
and
tips
share it with
on
your
changing
community
that?
or anyone that you
To
think might
change
need to hear this
And
episode.
look, I
If you would
can
like to discover the
seriously
power of
completely
flexibility and
empathise
how
with
kinesiology and the Ben Like
feeling
Bamboo program
completely
can help
stuck
you,
and
please book in for a
feeling
free
like there's no
discovery
way
call
out.
on my website,
I have experienced that.
benlikebamboo.com under
I
bookings,
understand that.
or email Amanda at
Baby steps, be
benlikebamboo.com.
really kind
You
to
can see me
yourself.
one-on-one in
Where
Melbourne
can
or
you
on Zoom remotely.
grab
My
even
book,
5
Ben Like
minutes?
Bamboo,
Let's
is
just
now
start
available
slow.
on my website
5
and
minutes
bookstores
of
online.
where can you
And I'm also taking new clients into the
Stop.
2024
yeah, and
Ben Like
I
Bamboo
get it. If
6-month
ladies
program
have,
of
say,
monthly
young
sessions
children
taking
or
you through
whatever,
all
you
the
might have to
lessons,
get up
tools,
5
and
minutes
strategies
earlier
that
to
I
have
Really?
detail
time
in the
without
book,
them. I
helping you
understand
to
that it's not
de-stress
as
and
straightforward
reset
as what it
and to
sounds.
Or it
reimagine what
might
can
be
be
just
possible
after you've
in
dropped them
your
off,
mind, body, and
to
mind.
childcare or
Thank you
school,
so much for
and it
supporting
might
the
be
podcast,
the
and I will
first thing
see
that
you
you
in the
schedule
next
into your diary
session.
as your first meeting when you get to work. It's like for the first
Yep.
half an hour that you're actually meditating or, centering.
Absolutely. And with that, so say if you're walking, I must admit, I like no noise when I'm walking. I know a lot of people, it's time to catch up on podcasts and this and that. I get that. There is time for that. Personally, I like the quiet so that I can create space for the magic to come in.
Yeah.
And then, so that would be sort of one of the first steps. And then the second is, can you carve out some time somewhere, even if it's once a week, to work out what you can cull out of your diary?
Mm.
So is it a case of, if you have, say, school-aged children, could you do like a share with a friend where someone does a pickup one day for both lots and someone does it another day, or something? Like, it might need creative solutioning.
Think more outside of the box. We need to be
Absolutely.
centered and relaxed to be solution focused. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And therefore you're not reactive all the time. You're starting to take back your power.
and then you'll transform what you're actually believing, because your outer life will be a mirror image of,
that's it.
I have all the time in the world. I have all the time in the world, instead of I have no time. I have no time. I have no time.
That's it. And you've got to watch that language. You really, really do. Because if you're saying, and I see it with ladies with their bodies, oh, Jane, I've just put on too much weight. I'm feeling heavy. I'm blah, blah, blah. What about if you said, I love that I've got more curves now. I've always wanted to, I don't know, it fills in, like it gives me beautiful skin here, or like just reframe it. And flip it around instead of really talking terribly about oneself. Flip it around. And often I will say, when women start talking and running themselves down, I'll say, actually, so give me the positive version of that. They're always thrown. Tell me something positive about yourself. You've got beautiful thick hair. You've got wonderful eyes. Look at your eyes.
Yeah.
And it's very Australian not to take a compliment.
Yeah.
How do we flip that around? So if it's time and you're feeling time poor, how can you flip that around and say, you know, yes, your schedule might be still as busy, but I value my 3 minutes I sit in the car before I go into the office.
Yeah, well, I'm so grateful for all these opportunities I have today with my meetings and clients, but I'm also balancing that with the rest I need to be able to hold the container of that space
Perfect.
and honoring that
Perfect.
So then
Yeah.
how there's such great tips, Jane. How can we use styling as a tool for empowerment on top of that?
So one of the things, an easy, like in that realm, is start to keep a little diary. Now, whether you write it in your phone, whether you write it on paper, whichever way resonates with you, start to use some adjectives. When you put on today's outfit, how do you feel? Do you feel strong, empowered, clear? Do you feel unseen? Do you feel like not, do you feel like you're hiding? Do you feel like whatever the words are? And then watch it for tomorrow. How do you feel? Just write, like make it easy. Don't make it like another big job. Maybe it's just 3 words. And watch that. Start to become conscious of what you're wearing and how you're feeling. Like start to connect those two together.
Yeah. And when it's in the negative, really realizing whether that story is even true and creating
Absolutely.
flexibility
Probably not true.
around, well, it's usually not.
No.
And then, having the flexibility and the courage to change your mind about that story, identifying where it might have started and seeing that you've just held on to that, which is what we do. We hold on to old beliefs that are no longer true out of habit, but also another way to not be kind to ourselves, another way to be less compassionate if we feel unworthy or we are just simply, and it's such a habit to even be stuck in the fight or flight stress response.
Absolutely. I tend to work with a lot of what I call midlife women. So they might be perimenopause, menopause, that kind of thing. And so that brings its whole own set of challenges, particularly with weight. You're still eating and moving in the same way and body's changing. I understand all of that. And so often we need some new tools to manage that time. So it's multifaceted, multi-pronged approach. And giving, I would always suggest, because kinesiology is one of my favorite modalities, it always has been, get support and learn some more tools about how to work around those changes within your body. And that's a big part of what I do. And
And is that part of what you do in your latest venture with Style for Impact?
Yes, it is. It's exactly what I do. And because it's giving women, what I believe is giving you tools, whatever stage of life you're at. And often that stage, that perimenopausal, menopausal time, it actually is a fabulous time, but it doesn't always feel like that. It feels like you've lost yourself and can feel quite challenging. Whereas to me, it's actually this wonderful time of reinvention and the new iteration of yourself.
Yeah, and I guess that would also be closely linked to the experience we watched of our mothers or grandmothers.
Yeah.
So whether it was positive or my mum had menopause for over 15 years, really struggled with a shift in her mental state and, hot flushes beyond, like constantly with a fan. But I remember mentally her confidence levels dropped and just because she was confused about how she was feeling and it went on for ages. So I've got to be careful not to believe that my journey into menopause will be the same.
Yeah. And look, I found I'm not an anxious person essentially, but I had started to feel quite anxious at many points. And with that, you can easily lose your confidence, and you start to sort of, it's a really tricky, and it can be a bit of a spiral. And so I think it's a time to get help and get tools, and
Yeah.
and then rise above it. Then it doesn't, then it feels more proactive, and then it feels like you're calling the shots, not
Yeah.
the result of this situation.
Yeah, coming out of victim of this happened to me, and then rather this
Absolutely.
happened for me, and this is what I've learned by overcoming the challenge. And we need support. It's okay to
Oh,
ask for
oh,
support.
100%. And it's wonderful it's talked about more than like perhaps when our mothers went through it. It
Yeah.
was not talked about. It's there's a lot more discussion now, which is a really good thing.
Well, if you were to give your younger self a piece of advice around building resilience, what would that be?
Yeah. It's funny. I think I've always been very resilient. I have this really funny mix of completely naive and yet massive dreams and self-belief, which is sort of a funny old mix, but I've just always been that way. But confidence is a big thing. Confidence would probably be one of the biggest things there, for me, which is resilience as well, and being brave. I've always been fairly brave, but I'd probably encourage myself to be more brave X amount of years ago. Yeah.
Yes, to be brave, because that's very similar to my personality too, where it's a mixture of my Aries naivety, but also a solid other understanding of myself that has big dreams and, you know, can feel quite confident about them at times. But
Yeah.
what's held me back has been when the outer confidence and ability to strive for my dreams, clashes with the deeper beliefs around I'm not worthy for that. I can't hold that space. Those things don't happen to me. And,
It's someone else that gets that. Yeah.
yeah, and believing things that were said in the past by, people around, and, and transforming what's possible, or dealing with also when things do go well, how you can confidently stand your ground when you are successful, and how that impacts others around you. All of that is all part of it.
It
And I
is all part of it. You've really captured it so well. And then as you start to really embody that, inadvertently you lead by example, which
yeah,
is what we're here to do. And certainly it is part of actually my life mission here, is to lift that
yes,
up in this way.
yes. And I think that when we find a clash of what we're trying to achieve versus what's going on the inside, what can help with confidence is, really knowing that you know your stuff, whether it's
Absolutely.
being well researched or you need to do some extra studies, like really realizing that you know your stuff, but also not overstudying either, and dwelling on your own personal experiences, and realizing that you know something that's very special, that's uniquely your experience. And then, studies might have helped you to understand what that's all about.
Yeah.
And with your business's styling is integrating that in how you express yourself, in
Absolutely.
how you dress yourself every day. And what we've learned today is you can use that to elevate and to boost confidence and
Absolutely.
self-empowerment, but we can also
Absolutely.
use styling to evoke other personas in us, which is
Yeah.
about slowing down and relaxing more, and not always being that power body.
No, because we're multi-dimensional, aren't we? None of us are all one version of ourselves. We're lots of versions of ourselves. So styling's a very immediate way to reflect that. It's also a very immediate way to really elevate yourself, your sense of self-worth, your business, whether it's your business, whether it's your role, and a role that you are looking to increase. It's a very, very impactful, immediate way you can do that.
Absolutely. I love our chats today, and I love chatting with you, Jane. It's going to help so many people, I think, listening to the power of possibility and how we can utilize styling,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
to go on our journeys to help us with reaching our fullest potential, but also knowing how to, you know, be kind to ourselves and reconnect into the root of ourselves and using our higher selves and that
Absolutely.
connection
Yeah.
to navigate life.
Yeah. You know, you asked me before about like visualizing. I remember, and I know we're right at the end, but it's just coming in.
Yeah.
My sister, one of my sisters said to me, imagine if you are awarded the best stylist in the world. And I laughed at her. I said, that is a very egotistical and ridiculous statement. Well, the next year I got awarded International Best Stylist of the Year.
Oh my God.
And then it happened the year after.
Yeah.
And I thought, there's something in all of this, isn't there? Like, there we are. You know what what you can conceive and then believe, wholeheartedly believe, and then don't worry about how it happens. Just trust the whispers, trust where you're guided, trust where you're led.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hence Intuitive Whispers, one of your other
Yes.
businesses.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Oh my gosh. So anyone who wants to check out Jane, her website is finesseyourstyle.com. All of your information will be in the notes, in the blog. And thank you so much, Jane, for your time today. I loved chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Amanda. It's always beautiful. We always have very rich conversations. So, you know, and how you help your clients is just so multi-dimensional and impactful. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jane. I appreciate it.
Mhm.